Hey y'all, welcome back to Red Lipstick Club Reality TV. First off, I want to say thank you guys to so many of you that have subscribed. I know it says so many, but like for me, the fact that I'm so close to 100 subscribers is crazy. I just wanted to come on this platform and talk about a show that I love so much. And the fact that so many of you have followed and commented. The amount of comments on the last video, I was just completely shocked. And I'm just so thankful that you guys are so interested in like invested in what I'm talking about and want to talk to me and talk with each other. So thank you guys so much. I love it. I'm going to keep working. And if you also want some like in between videos, like there are some topics or areas that you want me to talk about, which there are a few that I actually kind of want to break down a little bit. So let me know in the comments if you'd like some extra videos. I'm kind of excited to do some others. But today, specifically, we're going to be talking about episode 3. If you have not subscribed to the channel, you guys subscribe to the channel. Come talk to me some more. It's going to be a great time. If you have not liked the video, at the end of this, if you think this video is kind of fun, you love it a little bit, you had a great time watching, like that video, put some comments down below because I love to talk about it, and share with your friends, of course. I know that I'm not the only person that has other friends that watch Sister Wives. So if you have some friends that you think would love my commentary and would love to also put their comments down below, definitely share this video with them. Okay, guys, I've been putting the notes down because these episodes are getting a lot more extra serious. And I will say, just to start this off, I spent my entire afternoon, yes, I spent my entire afternoon, I will admit this, my entire afternoon watching Gwendolyn react to episode 1 and 2 live in Gwendolyn's Patreon. If you have not subscribed to the Patreons of Gwen or McKelty, y'all, subscribe to their Patreons. Number one, both of them are giving amazing content. I'm a little bit more of a Gwendolyn stan because Gwen's in Arizona and I'm an Arizona girl. And also because I just kind of love the vibe. But even for both of them, these two individuals grew up in the limelight. They don't have a dime from this. They were not paid to do this. And finally, they're getting their moment to actually earn money off of the years that these people were on reality TV. So imagine if you were a kid that had your whole childhood filmed and you don't have any money to show for that. So for these two, you guys subscribe to their Patreons. And I'm only going to talk about a little bit. And if you guys want me to do a video about the live that I did with Gwen, when I tell you guys I was asking all the questions and Gwen baby was on it. Gwen was answering all the questions. Gwen is just, she's just so amazing and perfection. I just love the interaction so much. I just, FYI for me, for this channel, I just have a little bit of extra respect for their privacy. And I'm just really not trying to hunt things down that was not released from the family. So if you're going to all the damn Reddits, I'm not trying to do all that, y'all. No shade, but like that's just doing the most for me. It's a TV show at the end of the day. I'm reviewing the TV show. I'm not going down the rabbit hole of what's happening. If it's on a platform where, number one, the kids are making money, I'm going to talk about that. And I'm going to talk about the show. And maybe some things they maybe post online about, but I just will not go down the rabbit hole. I have a job and a life, and not even have a life. I'm just not trying to do that. It's just too goddamn much. So with all due respect, I'm going to, if you guys want me to do a video on the things that Gwen talked about in the live, about the questions that I specifically asked, and yes, I did ask about Hunter, and the shade that Robin shows Hunter, and some other juicy topics that everybody has been asking about. I asked all those questions in Gwen's live, and Gwen was on top of it and respectful to her siblings, respectful to her family. So, but still being very honest. So if you guys want me to do a video, let me know. I will definitely do a video about that separately from this episode. Without further ado, you guys, episode 3. I have a lot of notes. I don't think there's an episode at this point. From this point on, I don't think that you can watch this show and not take notes. There's so much going on, you guys. And when I was in the live with Gwen, I kind of brought it up. I was just like, with episode 2, I said to Gwen, I watched this episode. I watched when your dad took Aurora on this ear piercing journey, and I had to turn it off. I literally had to turn it off and walk away. And I'll just tell you guys now, Gwen handled that situation a lot better than honestly the entire viewing audience did. But after we kind of broke down why we felt the way we did, there was more discussion surrounding that. So like I said, I'll cover that in a video for you guys because I think it's a great topic to talk about. So I'm going to be looking over, I'm sorry, y'all, but I have to look at my notes. So I'm going to be looking at my notes. Make sure I cover everything because there's a lot of stuff to talk about from episode 3. Woohoo! I'm trying to like calm myself down and I need to take a deep breath. Let me relax because episode 3 was a lot. I thought episode 2 was a lot. Episode 3, baby. Okay, it was a moment. I thought it was kind of cute that they started out with this like Oklahoma background. I was like, okay, what's happening? Is somebody going on a trip? Vacation? Like, what's happening? And basically, it was just Kody meeting up with a band of brothers. And if you guys don't know, his brothers have their own podcast, which is very manosphere-y, which is interesting that he has them on the show. So he's having this manosphere moment with his brothers. He did have one brother that passed away, which he seems so sweet. And even with his wife, his relationship with his wife, he was monogamous. And they just seemed so happy and together. And they had a huge family too, just the two of them together. But I feel still kind of sad about that. Because once I found out that that was the brother that passed away, I'm like, man, the brother that just kind of seemed like he had his shit together and was like just a nice overall guy, that's the one that passed away. That just kind of hurts my heart still. So despite how we feel about Kody, just like shout out to his family, like losing a brother that young. He was really young when he passed away in his motorcycle accident. Forgive me if I don't remember his name. He was only on one episode, one of the early episodes, but just shout out to him and his wife and their family, because I'm sure that was a huge loss. Kody has 5 sisters, and then including him, there's 5 brothers. So even though it's a large family, when you lose one piece of your family, and when you look at this Oklahoma scene, there were 4 of them total. So they were missing a brother. And even though I'm kind of looking at all of them sideways, I'm still thinking, man, that must have hit them hard to think we're missing one of us, you know? So just shout out to the family for that. That's just kind of always really hard. So they're having this conversation about divorce. I don't know what's going on. One of them's cross-eyed. I don't know if he's cross-eyed or I don't know what's going on. I don't know his name, but he has like his brother's kind of cross-eyed, and I don't want to define him as that, but it was so like alarming. It was just like it felt like it was being put on a pedestal to me, and I'm just like, I'm trying to focus, but it was like this. I didn't know where he was looking at. I didn't know what was going on, but it was a moment. But he was apparently another polygamist in this family that was talking about the family, what's going on, and how he had a divorce too. But also, I don't know, I was kind of confused because I felt like there was a brother missing. Like, I felt like there was one really older one that was in the episodes that was not. So was he a brother-in-law or not I don't know. I feel like there's a brother missing. Maybe there were 6 brothers. Because if you guys remember, like, the past episodes, there was a older brother that I don't remember. He was not in this conversation. He didn't look like the other guy. Maybe I'm confused, but I feel like there was a brother missing that was also polygamous. Either way, the one that was a slightly cross-eyed, I don't know what was happening with him. He apparently is also going through a divorce from one of his wives, and the conversation back and forth. Number one, I will say this. I do appreciate that these brothers were getting together, trying to provide a safe space for each other to talk about their relationships. And even though they have this Manosphere YouTube page that they do, I will say that this interaction didn't really feel very Manosphere-y, which is kind of interesting to me that they have that podcast and that page, but this situation didn't really feel as Manosphere-y. It kind of felt like it was a place where, like, you know what, you can be vulnerable here because a few of us are going through divorce or we've dealt with divorce and we know what this feels like. So we're trying to give each other a safe space because we're siblings and we want to support each other. So I liked that was set up for Kody. Some of the things they talked about, why are you angry? Like for Kody, he talked about, or he mentioned to his brothers that he was very angry, right? I still kind of go back to the fact that I just don't think Kody really appreciated or even thought about what great of an impact Christine had on the family, just on the family union. And when you think about Christine, even like at the beginning, and you think about traditions and things they were talking about, they all seem to stem from Christine. And when you remove Christine from that equation, it's like all the dominoes came tumbling down. It was like you flicked one domino and everything just started going down. And instead of being mad about the situation, I was wondering why Kody wasn't like, man, I didn't realize how big of an impact Christine had on the family and the family dynamic. And when I removed her from this equation, just how much we would really feel it. And instead its reaction is, I'm angry at her and I'm blaming her. Instead of saying, maybe I didn't really appreciate her impact on family for us and how much she kept the engine running and going. And I would have just loved to see him do that in this, what felt like a very safe environment. I felt like he could have really owned that in that moment because his brothers kind of felt pretty supportive if he would have felt that way, and he just would not do it. So I don't know. I just think he didn't properly acknowledge that. It's funny, too, that at this point, he also brought up that Robin and Janelle pointed out to him that his behavior made him feel like he was a woman hater. And I know for a lot of viewers, we have felt that about him. Like we said, it felt very manosphere. And for me personally, it kind of felt like the angry white guy that's feeling like all his rights are being taken away. It's very that. And I think it's funny that he said, both Robin and Janelle have mentioned to him, like, you're that angry dude that's mad at all women, and you are absolutely sabotaging all your relationships with all of us with your behavior. And I would just say this is just a real highlight of the level of narcissism that Kody is exhibiting. To the point that Robin, who is also a narcissist, is calling out your narcissistic behavior. When a narcissist recognizes narcissism in somebody else, it's pretty scary. So that's just something that I thought was interesting. Moving through my notes, y'all. I think about how he's talking about losing his wives and just abandonment. And man, y'all, like, Mary's interesting for me, and there's moments where I'm side-eyeing Mary, but I will tell you, this episode really makes you not necessarily get on Team Mary, but I feel like this episode makes you really look at Mary's story. And I don't want to say I feel sorry for Mary because I feel like Mary made choices, but I'm looking at the whole situation and thinking, man, this guy really left her high and dry. And there was a real level of abandonment when it came to Mary, especially because Mary was his first wife. She was someone that said to him, I'm willing to sacrifice my relationship with you, the time I have with you, to build this family that we can go into this kingdom and you can be a god in this kingdom, so on and so forth, based off their religion. The sacrifice that first wife has to make to say, I'm going to allow for you, not even allow, but I'm willing to partner with you for you to have somebody else come into our relationship and for you to be with another woman, that is crazy, y'all. Like, this is not a polygamous, but this is not a polyamory situation where the woman also has their own relationship and they're engaging outside of the marriage. This is polygamy. So there's no engagement for the woman outside of that man. So they are losing that. And he is gaining and they are losing. And I just feel like he just does not give Mary enough credit and enough support to say, you know what, you really sacrificed for a lot. You gave up a lot. And I don't know. That's just something that kind of stood out for me just in this moment, in his man trip manosphere moment. That was a moment. When he says cantankerous, that's such a, what, I don't understand the point of all these extra big words. And just, instead of just saying, I've been an asshole, pardon my French, but I have been an a-hole, you're using words like cantankerous. And how they handled this whole situation, and I was so proud of Mary for calling this out, and Mary basically calling out the elephant in the room when it comes to polygamy and the unfair advantage that men have in polygamy, where it's basically you can be a jerk and you can be a terrible husband to one wife, and if she gets on your nerves in that process, you can leave her behind and you can go over to the house of another wife and have a fantastic, beautiful, amazing experience that makes you completely forget that you were a terrible person to your wife before. And that's polygamy. And the fact that Mary called that out and said, how dare you use that terminology when it comes to polygamy? The fact that you're approaching polygamy that way says a lot. Because I'll tell you guys this, if you've ever watched My 5 Wives, the husband in My 5 Wives, forgive me, I don't remember his name, but I just remember watching him, and I feel like this is why this show did not grow and was not popular. And even Gwen said this too in their live, is they didn't have the drama because this man had a level of respect for each one of his wives. And I think just the sanctity of marriage, that they just did not have enough drama to spread over multiple seasons, because I just think there was a respect level across the board that Kody completely lacks. And I think with the My 5 Wives husband, in his brain, if one relationship was bad, they might as well all be bad. And I don't get to run from one to go to another. And even with the wives, it was interesting with those wives, if one relationship was bad, basically they're all bad in their eyes. And you saw multiple wives, especially there was one wife who didn't get her upgraded ring for their like 10th anniversary or something like that. And all the wives came together and said, I don't know what you need to do, but you need to figure out how to get her that ring, do it the right way, make sure you present it to her the right way. I'm not worried about me right now. I want you to focus on that wife and making sure that wife is set up properly. And that level of sacrifice, I'm sorry, we just did not see in the Brown family. And I don't want to point out one wife or the other. I'm just going to say that level of sacrifice for your own and your own happiness, we did not see amongst those wives. And we did see that level of sacrifice between the My 5 Wives. His name was Brady. Brady was his name. If you guys have not watched My 5 Wives, you can stream that show. I'm telling you guys, watch that show, because I'm not saying that the situation is perfect, because I don't think polygamy, honestly, is really good for anybody. But if you're going to do it, they, to me, are a really good example of having a lot of wives and being able to see a husband balance the relationships, and also seeing the wives really truly have each other's backs when it comes to their individual relationships, and basically calling out if that relationship isn't right, if you haven't fixed it with that wife, don't come to me and think you're going to get an easy road because there's not an issue with me. If it's not good with her, it's not good with me. And that's where I'm telling you right now, Robin messed up. And I bet you the other wives also didn't hold Kody accountable. So he never knew how to hold himself accountable when he had an issue with a wife. So just something to think about. Food for thought, y'all. But I just want to give to Mary for calling out Kody for that cantankerous statement, because that was a moment and that really bothered me. And I want you to tell me in the comments how you felt about that. It was definitely not good. It's funny too, like there was a lot of tea kind of spilled between him and his brothers, and talking about how Kody was bothered when Christine moved on, and he thinks he won't be bothered when he sees her with somebody else. I should have asked, next time Gwen does a live, I'm going to ask Gwen, how did your dad act around David? And I'm mad that I didn't think about asking that in the live, because it was at Gwen's wedding. And I should have asked that. So next time Gwen goes live, I'm going to ask Gwen, how did your dad react or act period around David and David being there. And also I kind of want to know, do you think that's another reason why your dad was late is to the wedding, 2 hours late, is because he thought David was going to be there and he's a hater? What do you guys think? Do you think he was late because of David or because he's anti-LGBTQ plus? It's one of the two. We'll figure it out. Moving along, y'all. So, so Christine is bringing up how Kody gave her no help, right? Okay, now this to me was really interesting because Christine talks about how he was like super down with Robin, giving Robin everything that Robin needed. And it's funny because Robin's like, oh, well, he didn't really give me everything. I just hired nannies to help. And it's so funny how oblivious Robin is to this whole situation. Robin, you had the financial means to do that because you married into this family. And you guys were on a reality show. When Christine was in that same position where she had a lot of kids and no support, she did not have the financial means, number one, to hire a nanny to come help. And I'm going to call this elephant out, y'all, but I feel like Mary had no desire to step up to help with child rearing. And I know that she was working, but I don't think she was working at a full-time capacity to where she could not have stepped up and played an additional mom role. And I'm going to talk about how Mary's choices negatively impacted Leon and Leon's connections with their siblings, even though I'm sure Leon has some great connections. But there are some gaps that were established based off Leon's mom's behavior. And if you guys want me to do, I have to do a video about that because that's a totally separate situation. But I don't think Amy has really talked about that parental dynamic between Leon and Mary. And we need to really talk about it. So I'm going to do a video this week about that because that really sparked something in me watching this episode. I kind of really thought about that dynamic and we need to talk about it. So we will. Moving on, y'all. So I'm thinking about the argument. So I feel like I'm gonna have to make a few separate videos from this one episode because there's so much that went on. Because I feel like there's a whole episode to talk about when it comes to the support that Janelle was not given while in polygamy, child rearing, and how that decision had an impact on Janelle's oldest children and also Christine's oldest children, not having that support from a second parent, and how basically their eldest kids became parentified. And I'm going to make a video about that because it's absolutely something I'm very passionate about. And I know it's in a lot of large families, how people try to brush under the rug and say, we're teaching you responsibility when I didn't ask for that. I'm a kid. Why do I have to have extra responsibility from every other kid because you and my dad or you and my mom, whatever, decide to have a whole bunch of kids that you couldn't take care of by yourselves? So we're going to talk about that too, because baby Logan and Aspen got the short end of the stick, and McKelty a little bit too, and we need to talk about it. Moving on though, we got to the fight. Okay, so let me adjust my chair, y'all. This fight, I feel like I'm going to take my glasses off. Oh my God. Y'all. When I tell you, let me just say this. When I was in the live stream, streaming episode 1 and 2 with Gwen. So just for the record, I don't know if this is good enough, but still subscribe to Gwen. But Gwen will not be reacting to this episode, to episode 3. And Gwen basically told him like they're not going to react to this. And I guess Gwen talked to Janelle, and Janelle basically said, "Sweetie, like, love you to death. I do not advise you react to this episode. It's going to make you very angry. You're going to see a lot of things that you don't like. And I don't know if you'll be able to recover emotionally from this." And after watching this fight with Janelle and Kody, I see exactly why Janelle advised Gwen not to react to this. Honestly, I hope that McKelty and Tony don't react either, and I'm sure maybe they will. But honestly, I don't think they should react to this episode either, y'all, because it was way worse than the clips that were shown. We've been seeing the clips of Janelle going off and her and Kody going back and forth, and like the clips were like, "Ooh, we're like, oh, these clips are yikes." We knew it was bad. I don't think we knew it was this bad and that it went on for this long. And watching it, I almost was like looking at my watch saying, "Is this over yet? I can't take this." Like, it was bad, y'all. This is probably the worst fight that I have seen on Sister Wives, and I'll say this: it needed to happen because it felt like it was years of buildup that they just had not discussed or talked about. And when I tell y'all, Janelle went in, baby, y'all, Janelle went in. And I brought up too, when I was in Gwen's live today, I brought up the fact that Janelle's kids, to me, were the most exposed to the financial impacts of polygamy. Because their mom ran so much of the finances and was so concerned about how the money was coming in and out, I feel like her kids had a really clear idea every single day of how money impacted the family. And seeing their mom not have anything to show for it, I just think that it probably exasperated everything for them, and it caused a lot of the friction that's happening in the families, because I just think those kids firsthand saw how money is impacting the family. So this, I gotta go with my notes, y'all, because there was so much that happened, and I want to be responsible about this argument because it was, number one, it was vulnerable, and I just also want to say, I don't like Kody at all. Like, it's very hard for me to say anything positive about him. And Janelle, was a part of this as well. And I just want to first off say, just as a fan of this show, I just want to honestly thank them both for being vulnerable enough to have this type of conversation on camera and allowing for TLC to actually air it, because it was incredibly personal and vulnerable. And I would say even more for Janelle. I just have never seen Janelle in this fashion. I don't know about the rest of you, but I was almost taken aback because I felt like Janelle was calling out all the elephants in the room that she has really stopped herself from doing to save the family. And I think she's felt this way for a long time, but to preserve the family, she's held back from saying what she really wanted to say. And in this argument, I think it was just at that moment she was like, I'm just going to let it all hang out. And I just want to say a little thank you to both of you for doing this, because it felt really honest, especially from Janelle, just what Janelle had to say. So these are just some of the points that I wrote down, you guys. I want to make sure I just quickly touch on each point. Forgive me if I'm looking over, but I just want to make sure I touch on it because it was such a deep conversation. And I just do not want to miss anything that I'm talking about. Okay. I will say this, though. This is like a little mini giggle at the beginning just to kind of ease a little tension because this is a lot. But the walk-in that Kody did when he first entered the room, it felt very staged to me. Like, it was basically like they said, okay, Kody, you can walk in the door in 3, 2, action. Like, when I tell y'all, I literally thought this was scripted based off how Kody walked into the room. I said, is this what is happening? This is Emmy worthy, y'all. This is Golden Globe, honey. Like, how he walked into that room was comical to me. That's the only comical moment that I came away with. But I'm sorry, I just had to start out with that because I was like, what is happening? How is he walking into this room, y'all? It was a moment. Moving past that. Okay, so he gets in the room. Kody says he sees the writing on the wall. He blames it all on Janelle. And then he has the audacity to call out her small Christmas tree. When I tell you Kody's level of petty, like, Kody is a female. I'm not trying to be rude, y'all, but like, his level of petty was so sophomoric, and it just felt like a woman being like, oh, look at you with that little tree that, like, he literally said, oh, the tree's small. You know, she has a small tree because she's in this small apartment, Kody. That's not a house. Because she should be on Coyote Pass. But she's not on Coyote Pass because you guys keep finding excuses as to why you're not paying this property off. But for you, you're trying to be petty and say, oh, had you bought a house, you wouldn't have this little ass Christmas tree. Y'all, the level of petty, him calling out that Christmas tree, I said, if this is like, we'll talk about it and something else. But I was like, the level of petty that it took for him to do that, really? That was so petty to me, y'all. So then after that, they're going through the argument. I remember them showing a clip of Janelle and Kody having that argument in the back of Mary's yard. And I never noticed in that episode how like shisty Robin's eyes are. Like her eyes were real shifty acting. And I was like, man, I never noticed that last season. And then this season, as I'm watching closer, I'm like, not Robin with these like shisty, like looking back and forth eyes. It's just, I don't know. I just find it interesting how oblivious she is to everything. But okay, girl. Also, too, in that conversation, they bring up, I didn't point out before, like how I didn't notice then, too, how Kody says, so everybody's coming for Christmas. And Janelle, for me, it's just like, Kody, how can you be mad about the holidays and people not getting together, but you also not know that everybody's coming? If you're mad, you were assuming everybody was coming. If you're mad about people not being there, you're basically assuming people were going to actually all be there. So why are you acting surprised now that all these people are coming for the holidays? You knew they were all coming for the holidays, and most of them already live in Flagstaff. What are you talking about? Just how he was playing stupid for that moment, looking back now and looking at that whole interaction, that whole big argument that happened in Mary's backyard is just crazy to me. And I'm just like, was he acting? Did the camera say, okay, make this stuff up? Or was he really playing stupid? Y'all, like, I need to know. I really need to know if he was that oblivious to how his kids were moving. Because I just feel like it's crazy to me when we look back on it. No one's calling each other. He basically said he reached out to his kids. Y'all, I'm a product of divorce, and my parents had a horrible divorce. It had a huge impact on me and my brother. My parents 20 plus years later are still not friends and still act weirdo around each other. And I would say my own family, just having issues with parents and the communication level. I'm really struggling with the relationships that Kody has, and it feels what he specifically has with Gabe and Garrison. And I'm going to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here, which people probably won't believe, but this is like a little bit for Kody, and I don't like Kody, but I'm just thinking about COVID. So for me, I live in Arizona, so I know what that experience was like living in Arizona and what COVID was like in Arizona. And when I tell you guys, up in Flagstaff, it might have been a little bit more lenient, but ultimately they closed everything down here. And if anything closes down in Arizona, because at that time period, we were predominantly Republican led. So for things to be closing down was a really big deal. So politics aside, it doesn't matter if they were Democrat or Republican. In Arizona, we were kind of purple. We were really becoming kind of purple during that time. And everybody was staying at home. It didn't matter what your political anything was at that point. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. We were staying at home. And I remember watching those episodes with Gabe and Garrison, and they felt very dismissive of COVID. And I think it's because in Flagstaff was very much removed from what was happening in the rest of the state because it's up in the mountains, and it wasn't as much happening. But I think had those two boys been connected with the native tribes in Flagstaff, they would have seen how bad COVID was hitting the Native American, it's not even Native American, it's actually like First Nation, like how it was hitting those people was really tough in Arizona. And a lot of them were being extremely negatively impacted. A lot of people were passing away in those communities. And that just I'm going to be quite honest with you. The white supremacy of the situation was very evident when it came to Garrison and Gabe. I have to call that out because I feel like people have kind of come to the defense of those two young men, but they were exhibiting some behaviors personally for me living in Arizona, living where they were at. They were very oblivious to how COVID was impacting communities outside of themselves. And I don't know if because we're so like anti-Kody, that we're not acknowledging that he had a little bit of truth to how he was handling those two. And Janelle, to me, and even Christine, were a little reckless when it came to that because of how far removed they were as literally white people living in America that had a different impact from COVID. COVID had a more disproportionate impact on communities of color. So if you're just white people living in America, especially living in Flagstaff, it was not going to impact you the same way that it was impacting Native communities in Flagstaff or African American communities in New York. It was not impacting you the same way. You weren't seeing people die the way that they were seeing people just literally, you blink and they would pass away. I had very close friends that lost relatives like that. It was like they had got COVID and 5 seconds later they were passed away. And it was mainly in communities of color. So I could see, and I would love to hear Christine and Janelle really talk about that. How a little bit dismissive they were about COVID because of the privilege that they had of just being white women in America that were not as at risk. So with all due respect, I'm going to have a little bit of compassion for Kody because I do not think that Janelle was as responsible as she should have been. Not even as responsible, but as vocal as she should have been with her children. And I just feel like she did not put enough of a foot down when it came to young men that are living under your roof. And that also could be something that's with like families of color. But I just know if I would have been living under my parents' roof, and I were to tell my parents, yeah, I'm going to go see my boyfriend or whatever. I don't care what's happening. I don't care if you see your spouse. They would not have been just okay with that. And I just felt like Janelle didn't want to be the bad guy in that situation. So she let it spiral. And Kody not being present made it spiral even more. And I think had Kody been consistently present in that home, they would have had a different level of respect for his authority when it came to that, instead of them looking at the situation as another opportunity for him to avoid spending time with the families and spreading his time evenly. So unfortunately, because of how Kody has handled his wife prior to COVID, it basically eliminated any credibility he had with managing that. And people could be mad at me. We could talk about it down the line, y'all, but I don't think people are being honest about how Gabe and Garrison handled that. And I'm going to call them out for it. And I don't think anyone's called them out for their behavior with that. But I'm just saying there's a lot of privilege happening that nobody's talking about. And honestly, as a new YouTuber and a YouTuber of color, I'm bringing up an issue that is something that directly impacted me and maybe the average person won't talk about or recognize. But Gabe and Garrison were very privileged, and honestly, Janelle and Christine were also very privileged in how they handled traveling and the response to COVID. I think Kody took it to the extreme and he used it as a ploy to not show up for his family. But I think they both needed to meet somewhere in the middle, and nobody was willing to meet in the middle. And I am glad that Christine and Janelle did both take accountability on that front and say it wasn't just one-sided. Both parties were slipping. But I don't know how much accountability Christine has taken on how she handled it, or Janelle, how she handled COVID, how kind of dismissive everybody was about it. That's a conversation if you want to have it. I don't want to really talk about the disease itself, but just that dismissive nature that occurred. I just don't feel like enough conversations have happened. We can talk about it. Moving on. Okay, so they're going through this argument, y'all. This argument was really long. I did not expect this, y'all. I did not expect for this argument to be this long and this in depth. Here are some of the things that we point out. The responsibility aspect, like when it comes to Janelle, And he was trying to put on the wives and asking who's handling the financial responsibility, which I thought that was really weird. I was just trying to figure out, why was it Janelle's responsibility to correct that? I don't know. I said that was weird to me. I didn't understand why it was Janelle's responsibility to correct his parental mistakes. Because ultimately, had he really talked to his sons, he would really clearly see that it just didn't stem from COVID. And this was just the long-standing hurts that they'd had from his neglect for that family, for the family. That's just something he just doesn't want to take any ownership for. The rules he set, I thought were ridiculous. I don't feel like he put those rules forward. I think that Robin is a hypochondriac who had these crazy rules, and nobody wants to acknowledge that or call that out. You guys, I was very safe during the pandemic. I kept a lot to myself. And I just really want to call out the fact that even when Mary locked herself in her home for weeks and clearly was a very safe individual, had seen nobody, Robin still would not let her come over and made an excuse that it would send a bad message. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know why Mary did not understand the shenanigans and buffoonery that stemmed from that. And why she didn't recognize then that Robin was a joke and that she was not on your side. How she played Mary during that pandemic. That's another video. We're going to make another video about that, but we still haven't talked. Nobody's acknowledged that. Why have we not gone back? Why has this show not gone back and talked about how Robin and Kody played Mary during that pandemic and like made it so difficult for her to interact with that family? That's a joke, but that's something that I was thinking about watching this argument, hearing about these so-called rules that Kody had, them going back and forth about gaslighting, y'all. Oh my God. I don't even have time to talk. Like, it was a gaslighting fair. It was just crazy. It was honestly crazy to witness. Him basically giving her the ultimatum to kick her kids out. I'm sorry, no moms, even when your kids are being jerks, no mom is kicking her kids out during a pandemic. Kody, come on. Even bringing that up to me was ridiculous. And why are we bringing that up, Kody? And I'm sorry, y'all, I'm about to just fly through this argument because even reading this is kind of irritating me because he was just being so ridiculous during this argument that I could only give it so much energy because it was so ridiculous. I was so proud of Janelle for bringing up like the perfection that he sees in Robin, how he refuses to call Robin out for anything or hold himself accountable for anything. And once again, he did the same thing. He would not call her out for anything. He will not accuse her of anything or himself. No accountability whatsoever, apparently, for either one of them. She's perfect. She's flawless. And he tries to act like he doesn't feel that way, but he absolutely feels that way and reiterates it in how he has no feedback, no nothing for when it comes to Robin. That was interesting. I will say this about the boys. I think that they put their social lives as a priority because their dad wasn't present prior to COVID. So I just think they had no stake or value in him being there anyway. So they were like, how are you going to hold us to a level of accountability when we can't even depend on you to show up anyway? So I don't think it made sense to Gabe and Garrison for them to adjust their lives for man that they could not depend would show up anyway. They just could not depend that he would show up. And Janelle specifically points that this man would go 4 to 5 months without being at that house. 4 to 5 months, y'all. And he called Janelle a liar. The amount of times he called her a liar, by the time she got to the point where she was cussing him out, when I tell y'all, I'm not a violent woman, but when I tell y'all Kody would have been on the floor prior to the amount of times he called Janelle a liar, and she finally said the F word and was like, you listen to me, because he called her a liar so many times. I mean, gaslighting is an understatement for what was occurring there. I was just, y'all, I was in shock. I was like, this man is calling her a liar on things that literally anybody right now on YouTube can pull the tape for and validate what she's saying. Who's lying? What is she lying about? We can pull the tape. We can pull the tape, Kody. It's on. You act like you're not on TV, bro. Like, we can see you. You're on TV. That was just crazy to me. The amount of times he was calling her a liar on things that we've clearly witnessed with their own two eyes. Then he calls her out for not being able to co-parent all of a sudden. And I'm like, Kody, thank God for Janelle. Her kids are so successful. Her kids have done so well in life. You never hear Janelle saying anything bad about him, ever. And by the time she got to the point where she wanted to say something bad about him, now he's frustrated. Now he's irritated. But she said she's been like the most ambiguous person in this whole situation. And now you're mad? Now you're mad, Kody. Okay. Now you're mad. Okay. Y'all, I was so frustrated watching this. They also brought up, there's some other things. Let me think. I'm gonna look at my notes, y'all. He brings up that everybody thinks he's a bad guy, because he is. I mean, I don't think there's a way around there. And then he also says, this is what I thought was hilarious. He said that he's been here day in and day out working on this relationship without her help. And this is how you know he's been comparing her relationship to his relationship with Robin. Robin is a pick-me. Robin is someone that needs saving. Janelle doesn't need that from you. And she's never needed that from you. And you knew that from the beginning. So his need to Captain Save-A-Ho is crazy to me, because Janelle never needed that. And now she's guilty because she doesn't need that. That was messy. She also brings up how he really feels like he doesn't want the responsibility of being a husband. And honestly, guys, I just don't think he wants to be a polygamist anymore. And how they're basically saying how, and he doesn't want to be the one to say, I'm walking away, or I don't want to be with you. And so instead of doing that, he's basically treating the women terribly and pushing them away and forcing them to be in a position where they're going to say, I'm going to walk away. And I don't think he thought that Mary was going to take this long. And so he's making up every excuse. And even there were times where he's like, oh, maybe we can work on it. When he knew good and full well he had no desire to ever work on it with Mary. But he didn't ever want to be the person to say, I'm walking away, or I'm the one getting a divorce. You know, all his religious convictions or his ego, who knows what it was. But I just thought that was very interesting that she said that, because I do feel like he basically would alienate affection from the women. And that's how he would start it. And then he would argue with you and basically push you in a corner to where you as a woman would make a decision, because he knew he was dealing with a lot of independent women that could only handle him bullying them and gaslighting them for so long. So I thought that was a great point that Janelle made. Janelle also talks about how financially she basically put herself in a pickle. I'd love to make a video about that. I don't have time to talk about that right now, but y'all, she definitely did that. And we definitely need to talk about the finances with this family, because to say they're messy is an understatement. I was proud of Mary for calling out Kody saying the word colluding, because just like she said, I'm telling you right now, when people are using certain vocabulary in this show, it is very dangerous and it is unacceptable. And people need to be very careful when they use certain verbiage, because the connotation when you're using certain verbiage, it causes a lot of stuff, and you just need to be careful when you're using it. And I'm really glad that Mary called Kody out for that, for using that word. At the end, you know, once they're done with the argument and that was all done, and Janelle's like, basically, I'm done with you, Kody. We ultimately get to the point where Mary and Robin and Kody are talking about Christmas Eve, and just, you guys, that was such a mess to me. And I know from my family personally, Christmas Eve was actually bigger for us than Christmas. It was a really big deal. And when we had a big family feud for us and the family broke apart, it completely destroyed that tradition for us. And I know what it feels like to have traditions dismantled. And it's not easy and it doesn't feel good. And I could really feel Mary's pain with that, because Mary only has one child, and I think Mary really fed off of interacting with all the other children. And I also just, maybe down the road we'll talk about too, just, I hate to say it, y'all, but the clique that is Christine and Janelle, because they've really kind of danced around their issues with Mary. And I just feel like you guys were all in a polygamous relationship and she was the first wife, and I think she probably handled it completely terribly. But also I'm recognizing with Mary that Mary's like, even though we may not be besties every other day of the week, these couple days during the year, can we at least pull it together? Because we did raise a family together. We did build something happy together. Can we just celebrate that and move forward? I don't know. I would love to talk about that. Maybe see what you guys think about that in the comments. But I could feel the cliques forming. You know, the Christine Janelle clique is interesting to me. And I feel like Leon's kind of left out of that. And I'm wondering if Leon also felt that with their siblings being left out. And those two families being cliquish and Leon kind of just being on the outside of that. Just something to kind of think about. But either way, you guys, I don't know, let's talk about it. Like, let's talk about it in the comments. You know, them putting Mary in the middle, deciding where Christmas is going to be. It's just all a mess. I don't know. I want to talk about it. I'm going to do some videos all week because there's just so many things I want to talk about that I want to get into more specifics about, and I don't want to feel rushed through it. So I'm going to definitely do it this week. But you guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in for the review. If you have not subscribed, you guys, please subscribe. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you guys for making it to the end. Put some red kisses in the chat if you made it to the end. That lets me know that you guys watched the whole video. And that's crazy if you did, because I love you that you're that interactive. Leave me some comments. Share it with your friends. Share it in your groups that are sister wife groups, because we're all having the conversations and I love talking with each other about it. It's a moment. Thank you guys. I'm almost to 100 subscribers. This is crazy. Maybe we'll get to like 150 maybe next week. We'll see. I don't know, but I'll be here next week for episode 4, and you'll also see me in some other videos throughout the week. And also, did you guys love the intro? I mean, I'm not going to do a lot, you guys. I'm like a very minimal when it comes to the edit. I just want to come talk and have a chat with you. But I thought it would be really cute to have just a little opening video that's like all about the red lips, and that's just my whole motto with going through life. If you want to know why I'm called Red Lipstick Club, I wear a lot of red lipstick, but also I always think about like when you're in doubt of something, like pull your red lipstick out. Like if you're struggling with something, if you're frustrated, if you don't feel your very best, to me, a red lip will really complement anything. It'll give a lot of confidence. It's just a boost when you wear a red lip. So if you're having a moment, definitely pull your red lips out. Until next time, y'all, I will see you coming up this week. Have a good night.